Welcome to the first panel discussion of the Diagnostics Leadership Summit. The first topic is really a scintillating topic. We are talking about feasibility of Atmanirbhar Bharat in IVD, the scope and challenges. We have a great lineup of speakers for the same. I would like to introduce the panel to you all. We have Mr. Jatin Mahajan, the Managing Director, J. Mitra and Company, who brings in a lot of depth and value in the manufacturing side. Welcome, sir, and for joining us for the summit. And we have Mr. Sukrut Jobinputra, CEO and Executive Director, Lab Assure. Welcome, sir, to the panel. We have Dr. Arjun Dang, CEO, Dr. Dang's Lab, and we have Dhirendra Dhube, Managing Director, 3B Black Bio Biotech India Limited, Mr. Mukund Malani, Co-founder and Operation Head, Cerelio Health, and Dr. Sunil Tarapalli, Founder and CEO, Lad Networks, our moderator of the day. Thanks a lot, Dr. Sunil, for taking up the moderation, and I hope the flow of discussion is going to be very smooth and streamlined. Over to you, Dr. Sunil.
Thank you, Pratibha. So good afternoon to all of you for joining us on this very topical panel discussion. I would like to thank Elets Technomedia for organizing this event. It's very interesting, and I was listening to the morning session. It was very enlightening, I would say. So clearly, as we've been, I don't know if you were in the morning, but you could make out that COVID has had a huge impact on everyone's lives, as well as our work and the industry as well. But it's had particularly, I think, brought diagnostics to the fore. I've never seen so much coverage of PCR, antibody, antigen tests, and test performance, false positives, false negatives in the popular press as I've seen in the last 1 year. Okay, so but on the other hand, it's also made it very clear that every country has got to be self-reliant or Atmanirbhar in terms of our capability. Be it PPEs or medical care treatments, ICUs, ventilators, or even in the case of diagnostics, PCR and so on. Okay, so that's why I think this is such a nice panel discussion to talk about the feasibility of Atmanirbhar Bharat in IVD, the scope and challenges. Okay. We have a great panel with us. We have got representatives from the laboratory industry, Dr. Dang's lab, which is a reference lab. Sukrut is coming from Lab Assure, which is a genomics genetics lab. We have representatives of the leading manufacturing facilities. We have Mr. Jatin Mahajan from J. Mitra. All of us in the lab industry, especially know J. Mitra very well because we've been using their products since many, many years. We've got Mr. Dube from the True PCR fame. I guess I think it's become very, very popular now in the COVID era. And also we've got Mr. Mukund Malani, who's in the IT side of it. So we've got a very well-rounded panel, and I hope that we are able to give you your a good food for thought as we go on. So I want to start with Dr. Dang, actually. And of course, any of the other panelists are free to jump in at any time. Dr. Dang, I would like to ask you, what was the impact of the COVID pandemic and its associated shutdown of supply chain, logistics, and so on your lab operations? Also, do let us know how dependent are you on imported versus Indian manufactured products and consumables?
Thank you, Dr. Sunil sir. It's an absolute pleasure to be with everyone here, and a very warm welcome to my fellow panelists. So certainly COVID has left a lifelong impact on the industry as a whole. And I do hope and pray that no civilization will ever have to go through this kind of a pandemic again. But there are many lessons and many learnings that COVID has brought to the forefront, not only in particular to the healthcare diagnostic sector, but also to the society at large, also to policymakers and the government as well. So actually, COVID has given us a chance to sit back, press the pause button, reset our lives, and also ponder over the various learnings that we could have probably done better in the past year. And I would 100% agree with what you were saying, Dr. Sunil, that COVID, the pandemic itself, has increased awareness and knowledge about the importance of diagnostics. Diagnostics certainly is as important as therapeutics. And also, after the WHO's mandate of test, test, and test, it was the COVID RT PCR test that was actually the magic wand or the key to the lock of testing, tracking, and treating the COVID-19 infections. Certainly, when we talk about impact of COVID moving forward, also there are a lot of learnings that we take back from this, that the government certainly needs to scale up infrastructure, increase spends also on healthcare facilities, especially if we have to cater to the tier 2 and the tier 3 and the remote areas in the country in a very cost effective manner. Certainly, what I've read and I understood is that a lion's share of all the reagents and majority of the medical devices, also actually read somewhere close to 80% of medical devices are imported into the country from outside. Now, if you are looking to service such a hugely populated and dense country such as ours, such imports will certainly not help us provide a cost effective and a high quality product to the last mile, that is the villages and the small remote areas that need these facilities the most. Certainly, when it comes to developing an ecosystem that is self-sustainable, that is Atmanirbhar, we need to start working on developing these same products that we are very much dependent on from outside. So, for example, I would speak on behalf on majority of the corporate labs today, and we are dependent significantly on a lot of automated analyzers that come from abroad. Certainly, there are companies, there are Indian companies that are leading from the front and generating and producing state of the art equipment. But certainly, moving forward, we'll have to see how we can rapidly scale that up. Even apart from that, during COVID, I'll just give a couple of small examples, starting from the entire confusion and the shortage of PPE, going forward to COVID RT-PCR kits, and then also tests related to COVID. I was actually surprised that a simple test like D-dimer that is usually used as in a case of an inflammation panel for our COVID patients, that was also on a shortage because of global outages and the lockdowns that were there during COVID. So moving forward, I think how India has ramped up its vaccine capabilities and producing the vaccines, and now we are proudly sitting here supplying vaccines to multiple countries, I would certainly say that this dependence on imported IVD products needs to be tackled in the near future.
Thank you, Dr. Dang. This is very well presented, and I'm sure great start to the panel. So I've now turned to Mr. Mahajan. So since you are one of the leading manufacturers in India for IVD products, can you just give us a brief overview of our present capability in IVD, and how has the industry responded to the need for Atmanirbharta, firstly for COVID diagnosis, but also for the rest of the products? Mr. Mahajan.
Yeah, good afternoon, Dr. Sunil. Thank you for asking me this question. In fact, I would say that the corona pandemic has shown us that mass disruptions can happen anytime. And therefore, the need of the hour is being Atmanirbhar and being self-reliant. Now, if you look at the industry, we are capable of manufacturing diagnostic kits and providing solutions to our customers. But when we look at high-end solutions, that's where the challenge comes in. When we look at the mid-tech segment and simple technology solutions, we are there. Like we have a lot of companies who are offering these solutions. But when we look at high-end technology, what Dr. Dang also had mentioned a few minutes back, that's where we need a different kind of skill sets. We need a different kind of manufacturing capability. We need people who are experienced in those areas. And that's where the challenge comes in when we have to scale up. So we need some kind of enabling policies from the government side so that we can meet these customer requirements. Now, let me also give you some background about what is the size of this market. Now, we are the fourth largest market in Asia after Japan, China, and Korea. And roughly in terms of rupee value, we are a 50,000 crore size. And as what Dr. Dang has mentioned, 80% of the products, unfortunately, are imported. And also, if you look at the IVD sector, it's roughly around 10,000 plus crore out of the 50,000 crore that we're looking at. So if you look at the size, there's a huge potential for us to grow. It's a sunrise industry, and it offers huge potential for any investor to come in the sector and actually reap the benefits of this industry. Also, what we look at is there is also availability of the affordable quality diagnostics, which is required in the rural area, which will be driving the consumption in line with the government's vision of Swasth Bharat and Shresth Bharat. Well, I would also like to share here that what I've seen is over the last couple of years, the government has taken a lot of steps to actually remove the bottlenecks. And recently they have introduced a couple of initiatives such as the PLI incentive scheme for the manufacturers, even local procurement they are mandated under 200 crores, or be it Niti Aayog, which is the think tank of the government. Their mandate is to promote the medical device sector within India. And at the state level, under the Make in initiative, we have medical parks which have been actually set up, which actually will help the companies so that they can procure all the services which they require under one umbrella. Actually, this will also help us to have a global manufacturing hub in India for the world. And it can be used as a good tool to earn precious foreign exchange for our country. Looking at the COVID-19, the experiences what Dr. Dag had actually shared, I completely resonate with them, because the lockdown happened on 23rd of March, and it was actually too much of chaos. But and at the manufacturing side, it actually disrupted the supply chain systems. And from a situation where we had very few companies manufacturing this COVID-19, today I'm happy to share amongst all of you that we are capacity surplus as far as the COVID-19 testing solutions are concerned. So be it a rapid, be it a ELISA, or be it a molecular technology product, we are self-sufficient. In fact, right now the challenge that we're facing is that we're not allowed to export. And if this restriction is removed, then I think we can earn precious foreign exchange for the country. So talking about our own initiatives like the Atmanirbhar at J. Mitra and Company. So basically, we are a 52-year-old company. We have a rich legacy of manufacturing in this country. And I'd like to give you some examples here. Like when we introduced the HIV testing solutions for the market way back in 1995, we commissioned a study wherein we found out that the market was highly dominated by the MNC companies, and we were the ninth player. But due to our relentless focus on customer quality and focus on innovation, we came to a position today that we are a major player in this space. We are now enjoying a dominant share in this marketplace. Likewise, for our infectious range of products, whether it's a hepatitis B or hepatitis C, the same story is there that now we are the dominant players in the marketplace. Likewise, for dengue also, when we entered in 2009, it was again dominated by MNC companies. But fortunately, with the same philosophy of being quality conscious, having a fair pricing policy, we have actually crashed the pricing by more than 50% in all the product categories.
So you're basically talking about the reagent kits, right? That was the format that you were primarily focusing on. Yeah.
Yes. We have also come out recently with a machine in collaboration with HTIC, which is basically a research division of the IIT Madras. So now we are in instrumentations also, which is point of care.
Okay.
So yeah. So basically,
I think that's important. Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, as I was mentioning, that even in the present tense, when we're looking at COVID, we have two testing solutions for COVID-19, which we introduced last year in 2020, and it's backed by automated production lines. So we are actually ready to meet any kind of requirements in the shortest possible time, so that we can be self-reliant in our fight against COVID-19. I'm sure that our panel members here also have similar stories to share. With this, I'd like to conclude. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, thank you, Ketan. So I think let's move on quickly to Mr. Dubey, and because COVID is the kind of the hot topic right now. So can you just let us know briefly about your journey to introduce the COVID PCR test? Because I think little more than a year back, I had never even heard of COVID or anything like that. But certainly, this is a new emerging infection has come. This was published, and the PCR test has also been, being produced in India. So, what were your challenges, and how did you overcome them, Mr. Dubey?
Let me welcome all the panel members. In March, we were just hearing about COVID being there in Italy and China. So we started working on the essay, and it was tough because we did not have any reference material, but we were doing the experiments. And then after several experiments, we submitted our kit to ICMR, and on 2nd April, we got the approval. And once the approval was there, then there were a lot of challenges because the lockdown was imposed. So, the movement of raw materials and even the production manpower and even the supplies, it was all very complicated because you had to take permission from the authorities. And initially, because the foreign kits were dominating the market, it was very difficult to even make headway, because all the labs were having the German and American and kits. So we had to convince the customers to validate, do multiple experiments, and because we had a 10-year R&D background and we have a lot of oncology products, we also had developed the first Indian H1N1 kit. So our kit was, I would say, better, but you can always say that the customer was happy with the kit, and they were happy to replace the multinational German and American products with our kit. And then the challenge came of scaling up the production, because suddenly from 5,000, your requirement was to do production of 50,000 tests per day, 1 lakh tests per day.
Yeah.
So we had to scale up the team, and we had to make the shifts. We were working till 10, 11 at night, and again resuming work at 8 a.m. in the morning. And a lot of automation had to be brought in. And luckily, we had this experience of mass production, so we were able to do the batching. And then every time, we would be sending personal vehicles and taxis with the kits to finally, they were packed at 11 at the night, and they were traveling all across to be delivered in the morning to the customer in Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore. And suddenly at 4 a.m. in the morning, you would get a call that, sir, we have been stopped at a barrier. Then you are calling the collector or the administrative person and talking to the police person that these are critical documents. Please allow them to move, even despite the passes. So these were the challenges, and then we were the first Indian manufacturer who could headway to the ICMR tender. We did reduce the price. I won't use the word crash, but so we replaced the multinational domination, and we entered into the government supply chain. And we were lucky that our quality was appreciated by ICMR and all the centers across India. And thereafter, the challenges were coming, but we were able to meet the challenges. And then the bad part started, when the mass import started coming from China. There were traders, or whatever you would call them. They were not true manufacturers, and the prices started crashing each day. So that was the bad part for the industry, that whatever you are doing to become Atmanirbhar, that was taking a backseat. So if the industry doesn't flourish, it doesn't make sense, and we would damage our existence to combat the next pandemic.
Right.
Because today, the prices of RT-PCR kits are below even at par level. You make lose money.
Right.
So that is the take, which is very critical, that we should somehow block such unwanted exports so that the local industry doesn't damage to an extent where it cannot revive for the next pandemic.
Yeah. Point well made. I think if you look at it, I would say that the Indian diagnostic services, they deliver services at probably the lowest cost anywhere in the world, and they do
Yes.
it with speed. Okay, I mean, I'm talking of even countries like the US or Germany or anywhere. Nobody
Yeah.
gives the result as fast as we do, and at a
Yeah.
cost that we are able to deliver. Okay,
Yes.
but what this also means is that it because we are not able to charge, because it's all market-driven pricing, and we're not able to charge high prices, we are not able to have sufficient, I would say, uh, purchasing power to support indigenous Atmanirbhar industry, right? We need scale, right? It's not possible. Nobody can do it at loss. Okay, so I would like to move on to Mr. Jobal Putra. So we know that also there has been price controls for tests like COVID. Usually, it's all market-driven pricing in India. So, what's your comment on the whole thing about pricing? Because you can't have self-sufficiency if you don't have good pricing. I would say, need not be high. It has to be. Everybody.
No, you
can survive.
rightly put it. I think Indian diagnostic industry has been generally very competitive, and we're able to deliver at already one of the lowest costs or lowest prices in the world. But this price control is a very prickly issue. As you know, especially it comes up during pandemics. We've seen it in dengue times. We've again seen it in COVID. COVID was, of course, an unprecedented phenomena, and there has been a lot of regulation which has suddenly come up across the whole all spheres of life. But talking about price controls, this is on one end, people feel that it's important to make the assays affordable and it should be accessible to the whole market. But in practice, I believe price controls work the other way around. They cause a lot of disruption, a lot of distortions in the market. Firstly, the way the prices controls are set up, I think that mechanism is not very transparent or consultative for that matter. Because if you see, the medical science and diagnostics is very, very varied. There are different types of patients, there are different types of requirements, and that needs to be addressed differently. And price controls often come with a one-size-fits-all kind of approach. So it creates a lot of supply bottlenecks for all of us. As I think so Dubey was talking about, that for any new entrant who's coming into this, price and control actually inhibits innovation. It inhibits more competition. And if you leave the market and create a level playing field, I think India has a lot of competition to make it affordable. If I look at our own experience with price controls in COVID times, these came up very suddenly. It was a knee-jerk reaction. There was a lot of populism which we saw across states trying to compete and beat each other in terms of reducing the price band. And a lot of kits, frankly, became unaffordable. There were, as I said, that there are people who require different types of kits, and labs, every lab has a different approach. So some lab would prefer one kit over the other for various reasons. Now, when you impose a price control, a lot of good quality kits were outpriced. And there are 2-gene kits, there are 3-gene kits, there are kits with external controls, and each lab will have its own take on which one to use, how and why. Every time this thing came up, we had to go and revalidate our assays, completely build up new assay with new set of kits, and renegotiate with all the vendors. So this has been quite a tricky thing, and as we've been discussing, that this is not encouraging the Atmanirbharta which we are wanting to achieve.
Right. Thank you. So I just want to move on now to the information aspect of it. In the lab business, really what we are in is the information business, right? We are basically the samples are there. We do a test and we get a bit of information from the sample. After that, it's all information management, right? We have. So I was very pleasantly surprised when I saw the capability that the Indian labs had for introduced during COVID times. Many times I went to give for a COVID test, and of course you have to fill up the form, and immediately they would give me. I would get on my phone that my sample has been collected, and by the evening I would also get a report. So that was absolutely fascinating for me. Clearly, for any successful big scale effort, we need to have IT. So, Mr. Malani, I would like your take on the whole thing about how the Indian IT industry has responded to the COVID and the IT challenges.
Thank you, Dr. Sunil, for this question. So I completely agree that IT is the backbone of diagnostic industry and has always been pro technology, and that's the reason that we started our venture with diagnostics, because they were very open to use technology to obviously to scale their business and give the best possible patient experience to the end user, right? And it's a very data rich ecosystem, and around 70% of the clinical decisions that are taken by the doctors are based on lab tests purely, right? So it tells you like the kind of impact that diagnostic has on the overall healthcare ecosystem, basically, right? Coming back to COVID per se, like COVID has a lot of positive effects as well as some like negatives as well, right? So coming to positives of the COVID side, so like every lab around the corner right now has molecular capability, which was not there like 1 year. If you look at 1 year back, that capability was not there. A lot of labs are accredited now with anyway accreditation, right? So that's a very big plus since we are bringing quality in the whole way of things. So that's a very big plus in the whole COVID scenario, right? And the COVID testing has scaled up a lot, and like our diagnostic industry has shown that we are at par to, let's say, talking in terms of capability. We have been at par with like very developed countries like Germany, US, and delivering best possible like testing capability and at a very shorter amount of time. And that's where like IT played a very big role, right? Giving a end-to-end contact like experience, right? So like we ourselves had been part of this IT side of things, where we last year we delivered around 1.8 million PCR tests alone, and it was a completely contactless experience for the patient as well as the lab, for which we had to develop, like the IT companies had to develop a lot of new things, like giving a verifiable report, like with a QR code you can scan the report and like see whether the report is correct or not, so that the sanctity of the report can be verified. Then like giving a contact like experience of like allowing home collections, doing online reporting, then allowing online payments. So all these things were very fast track due to the COVID pandemic like hitting at every corner, basically, right?
Right.
Then coming back to like there were zero surveys that were done in multiple countries, multiple cities. We were part of one of the zero survey that was done in Mumbai, where IT played a big role in the whole like deployment of the zero survey and like data capturing of like whatever questionnaire were given to see whether there's herd immunity in all those cities and areas, basically, right? So IT played a very big important role in such kind of zero surveys. Then like teleconsultation, like teleconsultation not like was unheard of, or not doctors were not pro for teleconsultation before
Sure.
COVID, right?
Yeah.
After that, after COVID hit, everybody was pro teleconsultation, and there were like I think a lot of states passed like proper bills to allow teleconsultation. There was a SWAS alliance that came where all IT companies came together with a non-profit agenda to allow teleconsultation and as well as give care when it is needed to the patients, basically, right? So that was a very big plus that was there. Then Arogya Setu app that came, that the government introduced for contact tracing. So that did wonders, and it was a very the implementation was very fast, and that shows the mettle of the Indian IT industry and how it helped the whole like government efforts from the COVID side of things, right? Right now, the COVID vaccination effort that is going on, that there also we are giving certifications on the mobile app where whoever has been vaccinated, they can show that certificate, and it validates whether they have had that vaccination. It gives a seamless rollout to the COVID vaccination to all the patients, basically, right? So all these positives have been enabled because of the IT industry, but there are some gaps as well, I think, where we can definitely work. And
I'm sure I'm sure there would be gaps, but I think we are on the right track, you can say, in terms of
correct.
the capability,
definitely.
in terms of the delivery overall.
Correct.
So no, the thing is that this is not going to be the last emerging infection, right? There are going to be new emerging infections as well. So, Dr. Dang, would you like to comment on India's capability of developing tests and diagnostics for both existing and emerging diseases? Okay, of course, some of the diseases are maybe chronic conditions. They need not be infectious diseases alone. What needs to be done so that we are self-sufficient even in the R&D, starting from R&D? Right now, we may be relying too much on Western R&D to deliver. So what are your comments on that? I think you're on mute, Dr. Dang. We lost him. Okay, I think, while he comes back on, I would like to ask Mr. Mahajan, one of the questions which has also come up from the audience, which says that, Dr. Tang, you're back? Okay.
Yes, I'm so sorry. I think there was a technical glitch there.
Okay.
So thank you so
ahead.
much, Dr. Sunil, for that very relevant question. What is India's capability and what do we do moving forward? Certainly, if you ask me, there is no darkness in this tunnel. It is all light. It is a very bright future. And I would primarily attribute it to the three reasons why I say that. The number one is the manpower that we possess. We have extremely dedicated, driven, and talented scientists at the forefront. The second thing is the financial muscle. Now, with COVID behind us and the government having hopefully realized that the healthcare spends needs to be more on healthcare infrastructure and R&D, like you said, is certainly something that will help us propel us towards developing a more Atmanirbhar or a self-reliant state. The next one is obviously knowledge. Now, knowledge stems from education, from awareness, but obviously where credit is due, and if the Western countries and the Western scientists are ahead of us in some places, we will humbly be more than happy to do a technology transfer or to have some kind of knowledge sharing, so that at the end of the day, we can ourselves develop a high quality and a very accurate and a cost effective module as well that currently we are dependent on the West for. Now, when we talk about further enhancing our capacity and capabilities, obviously R&D is at the forefront, clinical trials are at the forefront. And why I say that is because we've been in a way blessed. The silver lining to the dark cloud of India being the epicenter of almost all infectious diseases is that we can certainly fight this battle from the front, create systems and teams wherein we have a very robust clinical trial system. Because obviously, when you look at the globe from a bird's eye point of view, the cost effectiveness that a clinical trial can give you in India is incomparable to any other place. With the correct GCP systems and with the correct compassion of delivering accuracy, that is the central lab that is doing the clinical trials, I really feel that moving forward, if whether it's the pharma industry or the vaccine industry, looking at India as the hub for anything that is new and emerging, may it be or non-communicable diseases as well, or the communicable diseases, or the diseases that we've just been talking about, I feel there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that India will be the lab where the rest of the world will look at to do the clinical trials and develop novel initiatives.
That's great. Thanks for that. I think a very positive message that you have. So I think I would like to turn to Mr. Mahajan. Basically, if we have a target of, say, reducing our imports from 80 to 50% in the next 2 to 3 years, right? What do we need to do to get there? Okay. It could be government initiatives, but also I think it has to be from the private industry, because we cannot rely on the government too much. I think we need to also from ourselves deliver initiatives which will deliver those results.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Right. So, Dr. Sunil, thank you very much for asking this question. In fact, what I would like to share is that today I had a meeting with the Secretary of Department of Pharmaceuticals. In fact, the same challenges that we are speaking to right now, the same questions were asked by the Secretary also. In fact, what I would say is that it's a journey. In fact, what needs to be done is that an ecosystem has to be created, and as far as the private manufacturing sector is concerned, I mean, in COVID, what we have seen is they have risen to the challenge. And as what my panel member had also mentioned, that every dark cloud has a silver lining. We as a company, whether it's a diagnostic, kits and reagent company, or a molecular, we have risen to that occasion, and overcome all the surmountable challenges which we had faced, like what my colleague also mentioned. There were a lot of bottlenecks, supply chain systems have impacted. So basically, coming to some of the challenges, right now, so as I mentioned in my previous question also, as far as the mid-level technology is concerned and the simple technology is concerned, we are completely capable of handling that. There is no issues related to that. But when it comes to the level of automation, unfortunately, in India, we don't have any component manufacturing here. Like if you look at the electronics components, nobody in India is making it. We need to import the components and then actually, make those products. So that's where the government policies come in. We need to have some kind of encouragement from the government so that when these things can be addressed. Like, for example, one of the major challenges that as a diagnostic kit and reagent company, as well as electronic instrument, we have a inverted duty structure imbalance, which means basically I am having a disability of around 17%, and my cost of manufacturing goes high by 17%. So which means it tilts the favor in terms of export to India rather than make in India. So all these issues needs to be addressed. For example, there is a high cost of finance. As what Dr. Tang also mentioned, manpower is available, but then we need to skill them up and upskill them. That takes time. So we have also design capabilities. There is a limit to design capabilities that we have. We need to build up those design capabilities so that we can match with the best of the world. And looking at the R&D also, I mean, short-term approach can be having a tech transfer, what Dr. Tang mentioned. But long-term is we need to have our R&D centers in place. There needs to be an industry-academia collaboration where they can do R&D or we can do R&D, or they can do R&D and we can do a tech transfer from these institutions. So there are some government institutions where these things are being done. Like, for example, for our instrumentation products, we have collaborated with IIT Madras, which is HTIC, and it's state-of-the-art product. So all these things, so like, diagnostics, what my colleague also mentioned, we have a challenge of raw material suppliers. Well, in India, we have some of the raw material supplies, but not all. So if there is an ecosystem which is created where we get these raw material supplies, whether it's an antigen or an antibody, then all these things can, we can be self-sufficient and we can be Atmanirbhar. Like, for example, under the aegis of my association, which is IMED, we have made innumerable representations to the government also highlighting these challenges and issues which our industry is facing. While in COVID, we have all seen that the Indian manufacturers have actually invested heavily in creating the capacity, and ramping up all what is required to be done. But if you look at the foreign companies, they're looking at this as an opportunity where they can actually, just build up their profits, not looking at investing in India, so that our economy can also develop. So basically, what I'm trying to say also here is that if all these things can be addressed, and if Indian companies keep on investing and we don't get any benefits and encouragement from time to time, then it becomes a challenging situation for us. And every time we are striving to put India on the world map. So therefore, all these things need to be done. And another situation, what my colleague also mentioned, is that the current challenges that we had with respect to the procurement of COVID-19, wherein it went against the Make in India initiative, wherein instead of supporting the homegrown companies, which rose up to the equation and produced all these kits in the shortest possible time, which has never happened in the history of diagnostics. They choose to actually favor and procure kits from the foreign companies. So companies in India, they have a very good track record of manufacturing, producing, and actually supplying to a customer. So unfortunately, the situation today is that we do have a very high capacity of manufacturing, but unfortunately low demand, and we can't even export because we are on the for COVID-19 products, whether it's anything, we are on a restricted list. So if that is removed, then we can actually earn precious foreign exchange for the country. So these are the challenges. If we are able to remove these stucks and bottlenecks, I'm sure that Indian companies, Indian diagnostic companies, can grow by leaps and bounds. And this is a sunrise industry, and it needs a lot of hand-holding at this point in time by the government in terms of enabling policies. So with this, I'd like to conclude. Thank you.
So I think Dr. Dang, you want to say something? Please go ahead.
Yes. So just adding to my fellow panelists' comments. So the age-old saying that necessity is the mother of invention. Now, COVID has certainly proved that that is 100% true. Now, for us to move forward the same way that we did when we realized that there is no PPE in the country and then start manufacturing your PPEs, we realize that there are no COVID PCR kits, start manufacturing your own COVID PCR kits. If we actually look at this challenge as a necessity, that to sustain, grow, and serve the people of the nation, we need to implement our own R&D so that we can bring the best devices and the cost-effective healthcare to the country. I think the age-old saying will hold good again.
Thanks. So I think we can. No country can exist in a self-contained and hermetically sealed manner. That's not the way the industry can grow. Clearly, we need to be addressing the global market. The way the pharma and the vaccine companies have done. They've grown only when they've been able to access the global market. Okay, because your price realizations are much better, and of course, there's a demand for quality, high quality. Because you are not going to be able to sell in the US unless you get an FDA clearance, which clearly raises the standards of manufacturing within India itself, right? We've seen that happening. We also seen that there are some, downsides to that. Some Indian manufacturers were not able to meet the standards. But I think it's very, very important for us to be self-reliant to maintain that kind of quality. So I would like to ask Mr. Dubey, because I've seen that your product has got an FDA approval for the COVID test. Can you tell us something about your experience with that, Mr. Dubey?
Thanks, Dr. Sweet. After we got the ICMR approval, our team, put this point that let's go for the US FDA approval. So we started seeing the formalities on the website, and then we started doing the experiments which were required further, and it took us almost 2-3 weeks to make a dossier which was more than 150 pages. And then once we submitted those dossiers, we thought that now finally things would be over in terms of data generation and compilation, because we did not have time, because COVID production was also going on and all the problems related to the COVID supplies were there. And suddenly, after 2 days of submission, we just got a mail back that please do following more.
Okay.
And it was like a huge task.
Yeah.
So again, we got back to the lab and experiments and data generation. And after 5 days, we again submitted. And then after submission, and just maybe one day again, we got a question back. So this went on, and it was like, I would use the word torturous, and finally, after multiple to and fro, we decided that this is the last time we are going to generate data and submit. And luckily that thought process helped us, and then finally in the month of June, we got the US FDA approval. So it was a huge learning, because the way they ask you to generate data and perform experiments, it was very helpful for us to think about getting our future products go to US FDA.
Yeah.
But then although we are one of the top manufacturers, we have supplied over 7 billion tests of COVID in India, and we have been most accredited supplier of ICMR, and our kit was used by a reputed institute, SGPGI, for pool testing and found to be the most sensitive. And but because of the export restrictions, we were unable to utilize the US FDA to an advantage to the nation, or even the Indian manufacturing fraternity. And now with the license quota being there, we do get a license for 3 months. But then what happens is the labs abroad, they want an assurance that you as a vendor can support them for 5 months or 6 months without any break in the supply.
Mm-hmm.
So when we tell them that we have a license for 3 months, they get a little shaky.
Yeah.
So that's one area which government needs to do, is now just remove this export restriction.
Yeah, I'm sure they should remove it now. I think it's high time they remove it, because if we have, I think the reason for that must have been that they wanted to retain the test kits which are made in India within India. But I think, I'm sure with appropriate representation, and maybe they will remove that. That should not be an issue.
Yeah, because to be Atmanirbhar, you should allow export, because then as you rightly said. And after that, we also got the US fifth company for the US FDA for the saliva testing.
Okay.
We generated data on saliva, and we found that saliva worked better, because as a sample source, and we got the endorsement for that also.
That's good.
So we have been doing R&D for almost 10 years, and we have got several panels on oncology, and also multiplex infectious panels on respiratory, gastro panel. So we definitely feel that how R&D can help you to put your product to the best use to the laboratories. We also help the laboratories validate those assay, and to handle the laboratories in accepting them. And I would say that we have been able to, because all the products that we have developed, from BCR-ABL quantitative kit to H1N1 respiratory panel, human papilloma virus, all these were imported earlier. So I can truly say that whatever I am producing has actually stopped that much imports. That's
great. I think certainly, I'm sure it gives all the listeners great hope that India can become self-reliant on in vitro diagnostics very shortly, and we can all work towards that. One of the things in healthcare is that obviously, if you have more regulation, it kind of inhibits an industry. But if you have low regulation, you get poor quality products, which we absolutely cannot countenance in a healthcare environment. So, Mr. Joban Putra, can you just talk to us a little bit about what should be the government approach be to regulate both IVD suppliers and diagnostic services sector to grow it further?
Yeah, I think, as you said, the regulation in any industry is it's a tough balancing act. Too less creates a lot of chaos, and too much of it will stifle the industry. So one has to be very cautious and level-headed in this. Now, one thing I want to mention is that when you talk about IVD, I think there are two separate components to it. One is the suppliers, the kit manufacturers, consumer manufacturers. The other is the diagnostic companies like ourselves, and my colleague Dr. Dan will agree that our needs are different. And sometimes the requirements and expectations of the suppliers, consumable suppliers, and the users may be at loggerheads. So the regulator needs to be mindful of that. And as Mr. Dubey was saying, that we want, of course, to be export oriented. So we can't be export oriented if we shut the other countries out, right? So import substitution is important because it helps us against any supply chain disruption, or maintain a certain independence in terms of our global relationships. But it should not lead to isolation. So as for example, as users of technology, we would like to buy technology whichever is the best available at the best available prices. So we would probably want to welcome as many countries and as many companies here, as much as we want to also access those markets. We want our companies to access those markets. So we expect that the government is able to address these two conflicting requirements and involve the various stakeholders. So because it's a very big country, very disparate. The other interesting challenge is that this health being a state subject, so a lot of things, a lot of institutions like ICMR are reporting to the center, and they're creating a nationwide guideline, but the states are implementing it very differently. So firstly, we need to create mechanisms to make India a single market. As suppliers of tests or consumables, we are seeing a lot of disparity from one state to another. So first, we should create a single market. That's the expectation of the regulator, and then make us more competitive, so that we can. I think the world is waiting to receive our services. It's just that we want to make it more encouraging for our players to be able to access these markets.
That's great. Thanks a lot. So let's again move to the IT side. Clearly interoperability is a key concept for sharing healthcare data, and clearly, we need to have some way of sharing this data between providers. It cannot be that each hospital or each laboratory is in its own silo and nobody can, change that information. So, Mr. Marani, can you talk to us a little bit about the National Digital Health Mission? Where are we? What are some future steps that we are taking in this direction in terms of, Atmanirbhar?
Sure, Dr. Sunil. Thank you for that. So, like NDHM basically is like a UPI movement for healthcare. It has been under discussion under India Stack since last couple of years. But the impact of COVID has fast tracked the implementation, and we are seeing that it is being implemented in UTs right now, Union Territories, and we see that it will move to states as well one by one, right? So the whole idea of interoperability is that we started with this mission that to empower people to make better decisions through easy access to information, right? So interoperability is essential for that complex healthcare system to work. And as you rightly pointed out, everybody is working in silos right now, right? So exchange of information from one provider to another provider is like a big pain, right? They have their different language to talk if that information exchange has to happen, basically. So what NDHM is doing is creating the foundation for everybody to talk in the same language, so that the information can flow from one provider to another provider without any hassle, basically. And it's basically a level playing field for everybody. And what NDHM is doing is necessary for the next frontier in healthcare. And COVID has just ensured that it is necessary and it is required now. So a lot of efforts have been pushed from the NHA side to fast track the implementation of NDHM, and we see that starting the basic thing is to standardize that the test masters and all these test master service codes and all these things, and then move towards building all the foundation blocks so that the information can flow from doctors, providers, hospitals, and payers. Basically, that's the whole idea. And like one of the potential outcome that we see of NDHM is, if I don't know if you remember that there was a COVID-19 India dashboard that used to show real time stats of what are the demographics and all, where the COVID is being hit in which state, what are the numbers and all those things in real time, right? So potentially, if the NDHM implementation is successful, then we can have such kind of dashboards for all kind of tests and diseases, because everybody will be on that same NDHM platform, and they'll be sharing the data with with the government and all the stakeholders wherever it is needed. So that kind of it will unlock a whole lot of value which is not right now can be utilized basically with the kind of data that is already at the diagnosis side of things. And it will also enable better care for the patient, because they'll not be bound by the restrictions of the provider that they are catering, like getting their services from. But at the same time, it will also help the providers get faster revenue, since the whole data exchange will be on a single pipe. So they'll get faster, the payer will get the information faster, so for them to disburse funds to the providers faster. So it will be a win-win for all the everybody involved in the healthcare ecosystem, and we see endless for,
yeah, I think Dr. Sushil Shah was making the point that insurance needs to be there for growth of the industry, and they require obviously information to be
exactly. So this will also improve the insurance penetration in India basically. So that's the whole. There are a lot of things connected.
So panel, I think thanks a lot for your participation. I certainly learned a lot from this session. I think I'm just seeing if there are any audience questions to cover. So yeah, we have got one question from the audience which I would like to cover. So the question is, with the RT-PCR testing for COVID coming down, how will the labs utilize infrastructure built in the future or post-COVID times? Dr. Dang, how will you use your infrastructure now?
Sure. So certainly this is something that all of us have to think about and come to an answer. But with the ramping up of BSL-2 facilities all over the country, there are more cyclers, more molecular equipment, even molecular trained people have been hired to a certain extent. Moving forward, I feel that it's a wonderful chance for all of us to start working more deeply in molecular infectious diseases. There are a lot of diseases that require more attention, faster diagnostics, like multiplex RT-PCR testing that is available now, and also more infectious diseases that can be worked upon. Especially with these BSL 2/3 facilities that we have, now we have a lot of chance to focus on R&D and what we've been talking about. So certainly R&D, more infectious diseases, and going forward and trying to adopt new tests such as these multiplex RT-PCR kits would be something that off the cuff I can recommend.
Thank you.
I think there is a lot of ground to cover. So it's,
Yes.
as Mr. Bachchan keeps saying, when you call someone that COVID is far from over.
Yeah.
So there is, there's enough to do in COVID. Plus, I think in general, there is been a rampant under-penetration of healthcare diagnostics and infrastructure. So COVID has certainly enabled us to, expand the reach. I'm sure this will benefit the whole society in times to come.
So, again, thanks a lot, panel, for a very enlightening discussion. If I have one takeaway from this, it is India should remove exports for kits manufactured in India. That's the way to Atmanirbharta. Okay, make India a global player. Yeah? So, Pratibha, thanks a lot for the session. Hi, Pratibha, are you there? Okay. Deepak? Yeah, hi.
Yeah, so there was some technical glitch.
Okay.
Thanks a lot to the panelists for such a interactive session. The first session itself was really nice, and we had couple of more questions. I'm really sorry, due to the interest of time, we are not able to take it. But we will definitely offline approach the speakers and get back to you all with answers. And yes, a lot of good points coming in from the panel, like control mechanism needs greater transparency. Rural area will drive the consumption of IVD products. India should be seen as a single market, yes, and ramp up. We have to ramp up the capabilities in IVD products, definitely an S. And a lot of consciousness and level-headedness should be exercised in the pursuit of regulations. Yes, we had good pointers coming from each one of the panelists. With such a lineup of panelists, we were sure that we will get nice, you know. Thoughts which has been given. Thanks a lot for all the panelists who had taken time, who had also been with us. For the past 15 days, we had been bothering you all with a lot of messages and a lot of inputs to be coming in. Thanks a lot to each one of you. Special mention to Dr. Sunil. Thanks a lot for taking up the moderation, sir, and streamlining it so well and getting the questions from each experts and. It was a very smooth sail and a lot of inputs here. Thanks a lot, Dr. Sunil, for that. And thanks a lot to each one of the panelists. Before we wind up, we would like to give the certificates to each one of them. Deepak, can you please kindly get the certificates, please? Thanks a lot, Mr. Jatin Mahajan, Managing Director, J. Mitra and Company. Thanks a lot, sir, for your valuable inputs on the subject, taking up the questions as well from the audience. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And Dhirendra Dubey, Managing Director, 3V Black Biotech India Limited. Thanks a lot, sir, for joining in and giving your inputs. Thank you. Mr. Mukund Malani, co-founder and operations at Cellular Health, formerly Live Health. Thanks a lot, Mr. Malani, for joining in and giving your inputs, especially on IT and interoperability. Yes, 2 questions are on that. We'll take that up later.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And Dr. Arjun Dang, CEO of Dr. Dang's Lab, very nicely, well thought, inputs from you, Dr. Dang. Thanks a lot for that.
Thank you. Honored.
Thank you. And Mr. Sukrut Jobin Putra, CEO and Executive Director, Lab Wisher, who made the point that conscious and level-headedness is needed. Yes, sure, we need that. And finally, our moderator, Dr. Sunil Tadapalli, founder and CEO of Lab Networks. Thanks a lot, Dr. Sunil, for once again, I would mention that you had been, of great help.
Thank you. Welcome. It's a great meeting, I'm sure.
Thanks a lot. Expect a lot from the panelists here. We will get in touch with you all soon for the next summit as well. And we'll keep bothering you. Thanks.
Okay. Goodbye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.